Welcome back to the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity. We do this every Thursday from 12 noon Eastern to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We're live on the Facebook live stream. Margaret Marshall, thank you for the hello. Nice to see you, a former guest on my show. If anybody wishes to see the video so you can see our lovely guest today, just go to the Talking Alternative fan page on Facebook, facebook.com/Talking Alternative, or you can just find it on my personal timeline. So Jackie, we were talking about, this whole idea of brain-based coaching, compared to like regular stuff. So I was wondering if maybe you have some examples, and sometimes it's easier to kind of see the differences with an extreme example. So maybe if you can give us like a really, wild example or like a really surprising one of a client that you worked with and how this, kind of helped to make a significant difference.
Absolutely. I remember working with a woman who was in real estate. Actually, this issue has come up several times, different clients, but the issue is dealing with an angry customer.
Okay.
And feeling disempowered, having brain freeze, feeling enraged, fighting with the customer, all kinds of things. And it really, by the way, when these things happen in a business setting, they're really pushing very old buttons. So feelings of themselves as little children really start to stir up. So it's a very deep-seated thing. There's a very strong neural network that's attached to responding to a circumstance in the present.
Right.
So the first thing I do is I help my clients, in this particular instance, build a mantra, which is that think part. And, for example, my favorite mantra for myself is detach and breathe. So it doesn't mean I'm not committed, but it just means I'm not emotionally drawn into the other person's drama.
Gotcha.
So this person came up with her own mantra, which was, I got this. And the next step that I taught her in managing the anger of this client was, after you say, I got this, you take a deep breath. And then you're going to do what we call labeling. You're labeling to the other person her emotional state without using emotionally laden words. For example, you have a client who's enraged. What? This apartment has a leak here? You didn't tell me about, whatever the client's going on about. You say, gee, I really see how frustrating the situation is for you. And I would feel this way if it was me. So you're not saying, I see how upset you are, I see how angry you are, because that will only stimulate more cortisol in the other person. But you're acknowledging and validating and labeling. And that technique worked beautifully. And it does work beautifully for my clients who have those circumstances.
I see. Yeah. So it's kind of like reflecting back, but without using emotionally charged words so that the person feels like, oh, you get me.
Exactly. And that calms their brains down, which is the goal, and keeps your own brain calm.
Right. And that actually brings up an important point, which is even the words we use can trigger the amygdala and the cortisol reaction and not. And many years ago, I had a wonderful, wonderful interview with an author by the name of Judith Glazer, who wrote a book.
Sure. Conversational intelligence.
Yes. And like she was also very much into the brain research and just how words even trigger the brain in different ways. So that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So as there, in working with your clients using this technique, has there been like big surprises of like giving someone the technique and then it creating like an even better situation than you imagined in working with them?
Yes, recently I have a client who's more of a passive type.
Okay.
So she withers under pressure and she starts to cry.
Okay.
And so one of her goals is, how do I get heard? How do I keep myself calm? How do I change the perception of myself to show that I'm a leader and I'm strong? And so we came up with a mantra for her, which was, I speak up. That was, and by the way, people have to come up with their own mantras. I speak up. So she used the words.
Ooh, we just got lots of hearts on the Facebook live stream on that one.
Yay.
Thank you.
When she says that to herself, she then feels, her brain calms down and she can speak. And in this particular case, where she had to defend herself in a room full of her colleagues, she spoke up with facts about what she did to handle the situation and how it was effective, rather than what she would have done, which was to sit back, take it, and start to cry. And so she actually texted me that she's so grateful for this mantra, and it's been helping her ongoingly.
Wow.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So it's almost, I mean, although it's, again, I know it's not like we're reprogramming the brain, but it is in a way kind of almost reprogramming ourselves to respond in a different way.
Yes. And to trust that we can do that. It's possible, but it takes a lot of conscientiousness and it takes real work. It doesn't happen overnight, so a lot of practice to actually create new wires.
Right. Wonderful. I'm curious, when people come to you for this kind of specific kind of coaching, are there like particular types of situations that most clients come to you with more than other types that this tends to be very effective with?
Yes. Most people come to me because they're either not knowing how to get themselves out of a conflicting situation, they're too aggressive, or they're too passive.
Okay, so two of the extremes.
The extremes, exactly. And one of the other things people come to me for a lot is on their presentation skills in public speaking, because that is a huge brain freeze mechanism.
Oh, yeah.
That is all about brain freeze. And in fact, I have a really interesting story. When I first started training on presentation skills, I was coaching my client that you'll be okay, don't be afraid, you'll be able to be. This was before I knew brain-based coaching.
Okay.
That was the worst thing I could have said to him, because that only made him more fearful. What I realized in coaching people on presentation skills, that you have them focus on, what is my face doing? Where are my hands? What is my stance? How are my gestures? And it's not about you, it's about the audience. So engaging with them, looking at people in their eyes, smiling at them. So you're getting out of your own head and focusing on the actual congruence of your delivery and on how that is impacting your audience.
So kind of focus on what you're physically doing so that it distracts you from what your brain is thinking.
Exactly.
I love it. So even though it's brain-based coaching, it gets the whole body involved.
It is the whole. It is. You're absolutely right.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, because it's important, because sometimes we have a tendency to like over-glorify the brain and we think everything is the brain, but the body has a ton of information and a ton of useful stuff in it, doesn't it?
It does. In fact, 90% of the most important parts of communication are nonverbal. So the body has everything to do with the way we're communicating and people reading our signals, which are unconscious.
Yeah, exactly. Have you noticed, like, over time that the work has sort of shifted for you in terms of how you work with people? Like, has things, kind of changed with either the type of clients coming through or just how you're working with people?
What I love seeing is people being more open to the concepts of transformation and mindfulness. Versus being an effective leader, driving sales, that there's much more acceptance of, I need to figure this out. How am I being in the world? Who am I?
Interesting. So kind of less bottom line-ish and sort of more sort of personal internal development-ish.
It's both. It's that the bottom line always has to count, but the route to that is much deeper and has longer lasting results than just, now I know how to get to the bottom line, but who am I being that's motivating my team to achieve these results? So I think that's a big shift
Right.
Yeah.
All right. I'm curious, nowadays, in the current environment, given the certain personalities that are in the media quite often, bullying is becoming a little bit more prevalent.
Yeah.
Do you have advice for people, like how to deal with bullies in the workplace?
I'm so glad you asked that. And if it's okay if I plug this, I have a couple of YouTube videos on the
absolutely.
topic. How to deal with a bullying boss. Bullying is a very serious thing and can range from severe harassment that can cause people a lot of emotional damage to just having sort of pain in the butt, bosses who are emotionally out of control or really in the dark about themselves. So there's a wide range there. But the concept of bullying is that it's persistent. And that it's lingering, so you have an ongoing feeling of fear or anger, rather than, oh, he just made me angry because he just did that. It's an ongoing form of abuse.
Right, right.
So, what can I answer specifically about bullying that will be helpful to your audience?
So, like, let's say somebody, they're in their office and they have a boss who's like constantly, I don't know, berating them or telling them they're doing a lousy job, even though they feel they are doing a decent job. Like, how can somebody respond to that or show up in that situation in a way to sort of diffuse it and to make them feel not like they're worthless, and to kind of let their boss know, hey, like, back off?
This is where the brain-based stuff comes in, and this takes a lot of work, but it's doable. Here it is. Here it is, everybody.
All right.
When your boss does that, that is telling you that your boss is himself or herself feeling quite the victim and quite out of control.
Okay.
It's not about you. So to step out of yourself in that moment and say to the boss, use labeling, the technique of labeling, I understand that this is not what you would do or how you would do it. Can you please explain further so that I understand what you need of me? You're not going down there with your boss. You're recognizing he's under threat and he's responding out of cortisol flood.
Right, right.
And then you're really leading your own manager and staying detached from it.
Okay.
That's when you know you've really done the work on yourself.
Right. Ooh, lots of thumbs ups and hearts from Dennis Profit. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay, great. So, believe it or not, it's time to take our last commercial break of the show. Time really flies when you're having fun. So, when we come back, let's talk about maybe how this plays into some intergenerational stuff.
Sure.
And we'll let you know how to find those YouTube videos and how to find out more about Jackie. So, everybody, please stay tuned. You're listening to the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity. We're talking this hour with Jackie Kelso, president of Point Maker Communications, and we'll be right back.